There are 6 days to go, under a week. It is October 30th, Wednesday morning. This is The Warning. Vice President Kamala Harris drew a crowd of more than 80,000 people that spilled out over onto the Washington Mall in the shadow of the Washington Monument, close to the Lincoln Memorial. All of the totems of America's freedom and liberty and democracy and sacrifice within sight of the podium from which she spoke. Behind her, lit up, was the White House, constructed by slaves in the late 18th century, the home of America's first Black president in the 21st, and soon, hopefully, the home to America's first woman president. The choice could not be clearer. On the ballot, we stand at a fork in the road. America and her people will make a choice. We will continue forward on the path that our forefathers set us on. We will continue forward in the practice of freedom. We will continue forward with the practice of our parents' faith in the country, in each other, or we will choose fascism. We will choose a man who has no respect for the American people, for the American flag, for America's war dead, and for the U.S. Constitution. Kamala Harris laid out the choice. It is America or Trump. It is Americanism or Trump. It is liberty or Trump. It is freedom or Trump. Yet Donald Trump is undeterred. He's a liar who will say anything. A population that is ignorant, that is spoiled, is primed to be lied to. And remember, there is no victim ideology that has ever existed in America that is as pointed, that is as deep, that is as aggrieved as MAGA. The absurdity that Donald Trump would take offense because Joe Biden referred to his supporters as garbage who spoke at Madison Square Garden, echoing the same words, the same language, the same hatreds that flowed there on February 20th, 1940, when the German-American Bund gathered, when they hung a George Washington banner with swastikas. The successors of those people marched in Charlottesville, and Trump said they were good people. The successors of those people are the Patriot Front and the Oath Keepers and the fascist Proud Boys. When they rampaged through Washington, D.C. on the eve of President Biden's inaugural, they were indeed Trump's brown shirts, an American essay. Donald Trump put out a tweet last night, and in the tweet, Donald Trump talked about himself as a victim. Donald Trump talked about his movement as a movement of love. I'm going to read the statement, but there's more context needed. And for that, we have to turn to the great British author George Orwell, a great spokesman and champion for freedom, whose novel 1984 stands as perhaps the greatest dystopian imagining of what an autocratic society looks like. In the end, the protagonist, Winston, is being tortured by the party official O'Brien. O'Brien is holding up 5 fingers and demanding that Wilson tell him how many he sees. O'Brien tells Winston the truth. However many fingers he sees is determined by how many fingers the party tells him he sees. The very first thing that happened in Donald Trump's presidency was a monstrous lie of authority when he sent his diminutive, prevaricating spokesperson forward to stand behind the presidential seal and tell the American people that the photograph of Donald Trump's smaller inaugural size was in fact larger. This isn't a lie of puffery like the Montana Senate candidate who made up a story about being shot in the arm. It's not a lie of exaggeration like Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut who lied about going to Vietnam. It's a lie of authority. It's designed to make you submit to a truth that is a perversion of the concept of truth. That what is true is what the leader says is true. Let's watch Sean Hannity playing the role of Baghdad Bob, trying to exculpate Donald Trump from his hate fest at Madison Square Garden. Is this what you want for the next 4 years?
I was told and made aware that you had no idea about this comedian who made comments.
I have no idea who he is. Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something, and I have no idea who he was. Never saw him, never heard of him, and don't want to hear of him. But I have no idea. They put a comedian in, which everybody does. You throw comedians in. You don't vet them and go crazy. It's nobody's fault. But somebody said some bad things. Now, what they've done is taken somebody that has nothing to do with the party, has nothing to do with us, said something, and they try and make a big deal. But I don't know who it is. I don't even know who put him in. And I can't imagine it's a big deal. I've done more for Puerto Rico than any president, I think, that's ever been president.
Let me just say, as somebody who grew up in New Jersey, get the out of here. Truly, get the out of here. Who would fall for this? Maybe the same person that would fall for this. While I am running a campaign of positive solutions to save America, Kamala Harris is running a campaign of hate. She has spent all week comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. Now, on top of everything, Joe Biden calls our supporters garbage. You can't lead America if you don't love the American people. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have shown they are both unfit to be president of the United States. I am proud to lead the biggest, broadest, and most important political coalition in American history. We are welcoming historic numbers of Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, and citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. It is my desire to be president of all the people. Really? Anybody who has the capacity to fall for this is in danger because they lack the judgment and the common sense to process information that is plainly and clearly in front of them. The reason that Donald Trump is being called a fascist is because Donald Trump is a fascist. The reason that people are looking at Donald Trump and his hateful rally and comparing it to the Nazi rally in 1939 is because the same things were said at both rallies. Donald Trump did the worst thing that any leader has ever done to the American people. He tried to steal their vote that was passed down to us on a river of blood, of sacrifice by young men who laid down their lives so we could be free in the 21st century. Donald Trump has disgraced the country, the ideals of the country, the war debt of the country. There is no symbol that was too sacred for him to piss on. Not even the gravestones at Arlington National Cemetery were exempt. Kamala Harris is precisely right to compare him to what it is that he aspires to be, which is a tyrant. Donald Trump is a fascist. Understand something about Adolf Hitler. He launched his coup in 1923. It took 9 years to become chancellor after that, and another year to become dictator. It took 9 years after that for the meeting where the Holocaust was planned to commence, which was 3 years after the start of the Second World War. It took place at a moment in time when the Nazis were winning. When they were losing, they put enormous energy into covering up their crimes, trying to hide them. But there was a moment when the Nazis were ascendant and victorious, and they controlled a vast swath of the world's territories, and the Jews were being turned into smoke, and no one knew. And if they won, no one would have ever known. The Jews would simply have disappeared, to have been resettled somewhere in a paradise, no doubt, in the East. Donald Trump has lied to you nonstop more than 45,000 times in 10 years. It equals 10 lies a day. It's extraordinary. Now, the Democratic Party is far from perfect. It's why I spent 30 years running Republican campaigns trying to defeat them. But Kamala Harris said something that is deeply true. And when she said it, she picked up the reins, the baton that goes back in a long line all the way to George Washington, to Abraham Lincoln. She is their successor. She holds their legacies in her hands and our destiny as a nation, because we will either have a woman in the Oval Office who believes in us, who believes in the Constitution, who is decent, who is moral, or we will have a degenerate, a fascist, an adjudicated rapist, a convicted criminal, surrounded by the lowest common denominator: criminals, deviants, sexual assaulters, alleged rapists. These people aren't just unfit, they're a danger to the survival of the Republic. 6 days from now, nearly 100 million people will leave their homes and line up to cast their vote. There has only ever been one person in all of American history who, when the people said, "No more power for you," tried to take their vote away, tried to impose himself on the country as a dictator, as a king, as an illegitimate leader, because the American people rejected him. And now we are called in a moment of profound choosing to do it again. We're not being asked to storm the Normandy beaches. We're being asked to affirm a faith in an idea that's the most important ever put to paper by the mind of man. The vice president talked about it last night.
We are not a vessel for the schemes of wannabe dictators. The United States of America is the greatest idea humanity ever devised. A nation big enough to encompass all our dreams, strong enough to withstand any fracture or fissure between us, and fearless enough to imagine a future of possibilities. So, America, let us reach for that future. Let us fight for this beautiful country we love.
She couldn't be more right. All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This country will not fall to a demagogue like Donald Trump. Instead, 6 days from now, we will see the sparks of renewal if we all do our part. We must choose the future we want, and we must reject the darkness at hand. The choice is clear. It is America or it is Trump. It is America or it is MAGA. It is liberty or it is fascism. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.